I do not think that it is wise to be thinking about expatriating myself. And in terms of capital controls, I think it's a very real risk, which is why if you're going to be, for example, in Australian dollars or Canadian dollars or some other currency, I think you have to do it in a means that allows you to get out of there fast in front of any such attempted imposition. And I think you'll get warning on that. It's not going to be an overnight kind of thing. The idea that we're all of a sudden going to see an overnight devaluation like we did with FDR in the 1930s, it would be almost impossible to pull off, and if they actually tried it in the United States today, it would likely result in a war. So I don't see that as being a very realistic possibility. I see these as more of a creeping kind of incrementalism thing.
For traders that are currently invested in precious metals and they are looking to cash out their profits, what other investments could they diversify into?
Well, one of the toughest things to do is to sell something that has a big gain when you think there's more in front of it. The real question is, do you have what you need in terms of preparations complete from a standpoint of being able to make it if everything goes down the toilet? There's two scenarios here, and they're pretty much polar opposites. One of them is that if you're really well off, if you're in that above middle class but not Bill Gates style rich, okay, so you're in that realm where you have maybe a couple of $1 million worth of assets, not a lot of debt, you're not terribly highly levered, and under ordinary circumstances things would be pretty much okay. What you need to be thinking about is, are you all right if all that cash, in whatever form you have it, disappears? And if not, you need to solve that problem first. Once you've solved that problem, then I think you have to look at the market, you have to look at the different asset classes that are available literally on a day-by-day basis and be an active manager of your own money. And that's what I'm doing. There are times that I am long stocks, there are times I'm long metals, but I do it through futures contracts because I don't like the tax that gets charged on conversion and physical. There are times that I'm interested in buying other things. In the 2000 recession, 75% of my portfolio was in municipal bonds because it was tax-free income. Today I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole because I think the states are in worse financial condition than the federal government is. But that's my personal opinion, and I think that everybody has to look at this on their own. I'm not an investment advisor. I am, I'm more of an economics and markets reporter than I am an advisor from that standpoint. And the way that I trade personally is almost certain to be entirely inappropriate for anybody else. And that's going to be true for anybody else too. I don't think you can take anybody's particular style and investment goals and make them your own without understanding exactly what you're doing.
Okay, thank you very much for that feedback, Karl. We do appreciate your perspectives. There are some questions that didn't neatly lump themselves into categories, as did the preceding, but they're generally about the future. So if you would please indulge us as we seek your opinions about a variety of mishmashy stuff. For the first of those questions, we're going to turn to our forum member, Mazar.
Karl, in reading your 2011 predictions, oil is already past $100 a barrel and gas is $4 a gallon in many states. Would you say that your 2011 timeline has accelerated?
No, probably not. I still believe that we're going to see a repeat of the kind of accident that we saw in 2008. The idiocy of our federal government knows no boundary, and the arrogance of the people that inhabit Washington, D.C. Is a close second behind that. The amusing thing is that I'm now starting to get some pushback and some phone calls from people that were ignoring me 6 months ago. And I don't know if that means that people are finally waking up within the Beltway, or whether it just means that they see the writing on the wall and they're trying to figure out whether or not they'll fuel up their Learjets and get ready to leave. The funny thing about this is that in 2008, there were plenty of people in the McCain campaign, among others, that believed that they would get through the election before anything really bad happened. And we all know how that turned out. So I don't think the timeline really has changed much. My expectation in terms of the rest of 2011 is pretty much on track with what I put forward in January. I normally do an update on that ticker at the end of June, kind of a 6-month review, and I score what's what has and hasn't happened and see if there's any adjustments that I want to make. But at this particular juncture, I don't see anything that that looks different. A surprising number of the things that I thought would happen in 2011 have come to pass, though, and some of them ahead of my original expectations. One of them being the situation in the fall of the government in Egypt.
And Karl, you've already answered my second question, which was whether you planned on posting a mid-year evaluation of your 2011 predictions. So I'll look forward to your June wrap-up.
Okie doke.
Thanks, Karl.
Ms. Orr, why don't you go ahead and continue and finish up with the other forum questions? Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, Karl, this question is from forum member Green Meadow, and his question is, what advice would you give to a young person trying to start a career and build a financial future?
Don't go into debt. Number one. Most important thing. Find something you love and do it because you love it, not because you think it's going to make you rich. But above and beyond everything else, do not go into debt getting an education. Figure out what you need to do. If you need an education in order to do whatever you're going to do in the formal sense, i.e. a university or whatever have you, figure out how to do it without taking student loans. They are an absolute millstone around your neck. There are always going to be those people that the bet works out for. Okay, so this is not to say that everybody is going to get hosed that does this, but the odds are against you. And unfortunately, if you do get hammered on this, it's going to ruin you financially, and it's going to ruin you in terms of your enjoyment of your life. So, the first thing, and this is advice I've given to people for 20 years, it's do what you love, worry about the money later. It'll come. And, money isn't everything. If you're miserable going to work every day, you can have quite a bit of money and you're still miserable.
Good answer, Karl. Now, what advice would you give to a 40 or 50-year-old still trying to create a secure retirement?
If you're not 3/4 of the way there by now, you're in trouble. And unfortunately, an awful lot of people, if I look at the statistics and I believe them, then the vast majority of people in their 40s and 50s are in a lot of trouble. The unfortunate reality is that the mistakes that you make in your youth come back and bite you in a terrible way. I ran some numbers for a very young friend of mine who was just going into college a few years ago. She was 18, had just gotten out of high school, was going to start university. And I told her, I said, look, do not buy any $6.50 pizzas on a credit card. And she said, well, what are you talking about? And I sat down with a calculator and I showed her how that $6.50 pizza would cost her $10,000 by the time she was 65. And she said, what? Well, unfortunately, once you've chosen to eat the $6.50 pizza, you've made a decision that can't be undone 25 years later. So if you're behind the 8 ball at this point in your life, you've got a major problem. And again, you need to be thinking about downshifting expectations and acquiring enough land and a place to live that you are going to be able to live out your years without having recourse to all of these fabulous financial instruments and toys. And again, you have to be able to do it without taking on debt. So that would be where I would put my first and foremost priority, would be to find a place you could put a homestead that they can't seize. And if that means that when you turn 65 and retire, that you default on your previous residence and you leave, then that's what you do. But you have to arrange things very carefully in order to not get hammered on that. The other thing is that under absolutely no circumstances do you ever touch, for any purpose, a qualified retirement plan if you get in financial trouble, i.e. 401ks and IRAs. They are immune from attachment in bankruptcy or by creditors. This is a federal issue, and you need to learn this. If you are thinking about doing it, go see an attorney and a CPA and do it before you tap those funds. 99 times out of 100, in my opinion, that kind of a move is a huge mistake. You need qualified legal advice before you do it, and believe me, the creditors will hound you to try to get you to do this. It is almost never the right choice. And a lot of people that are in the middle of their careers have gotten ruined by doing this, trying to save their house. It's, you see people that had, $250,000 401ks. They took $150,000 loan against that, and they used it to cover their mortgage, and then they get fired or laid off. They're required to pay that 401k loan back immediately when they're dismissed. They don't have the money, of course, because they gave it to the mortgage company, and then the IRS turns around and taxes them on it as an early distribution. Those kinds of mistakes can wreck you, and it's very important that you not make them.
Thanks very much, Karl. I'm going to study these answers when the transcript of the interview comes out. Thanks again, Karl.
Yep.
Karl, as we end this discussion, we wanted to ask you two final questions. First, have you been able to monetize your online blog to the same level you were able to monetize your prior web businesses? Basically, does blogging and running your forum pay a real living wage compared to running a traditional business?
It's not as profitable, but if you're asking me if I make enough money to make it worth my while, the answer is yes. Would I do it if I wasn't? The answer is still yes. When I started writing in 2007, I was not doing it with the intent of turning a profit. There has been one turned, and it certainly is enough for me to continue to work at to work at things. But my primary purpose in doing this in 2007 was that I saw the same scams being run in the housing bubble that I saw happening in the internet bubble, but of course across a much wider swath of society, and it was manifestly unjust. I could not sit still and watch people get hosed the way that happened in the technology space without speaking out and hopefully being able to give people fair warning of what was to come.
Well, we certainly appreciate having had your views and perspective. It adds to the information that all of us have, real information, so that we can react to things appropriately. And in that same vein, what is the scenario that would make you shut down the Ticker Forum tomorrow and decide to bug out once and for all?
If I was to become convinced that the political and economic system of the United States was gone beyond repair, that there was no chance to survive what was coming in its present form, then there would be no further point. And that's the point at which I would turn the servers off and go home. And it would be where I am now. It would literally be a bug out, and I am prepared for the possibility that might be necessary.
Okay, Mr. Denninger, thank you so much for taking the time out of your weekend to enlighten us with your views and perspectives. We've gained insight, and we really, truly appreciate it. I hope it's been as enjoyable for you as it has been for us. If not, we hope it certainly wasn't too torturous. One of the bigger concern sets for the average people out there is the economy, finances, and their jobs. MarketTicker.org is a high-quality location on the web where they can turn for insight, plain speaking, and the frequent reminder for responsible authorities that should be echoed daily. Stop the looting and start prosecuting! Karl's blog and discussion forum provide an economic opinion and information that allows many people to understand what is happening financially and to help overcome their fear through knowledge. On behalf of Fox and all of the members of the WebBot Forum, we thank you, sir. And in the tradition of the WebBot Forum, may you have many pies to come.
Thank you.